Hello, my name is Melanie Armstrong and I work in the Education Data Division at the Department for Education. I'm here to talk to you about the school census. This is one of a series of videos related to the census and should be watched in conjunction with the others. This slide lists the topic areas I'll be covering in the presentation. The data collected via the school census is used to support raising standards, provides funding and assists in the monitoring and development of policy. It is expected that a well-managed school would keep information required up to date on an event-driven basis, which will ensure minimum burden on schools when the data is requested by the department. In preparation for the beginning of the academic year, you should have either received or been in the process of receiving a Common Transfer File, or CTF, for all new pupils you're expecting, and it's highly recommended that for your leavers you have or are in the process of sending the CTF to your leavers receiving schools. A CTF is used to electronically transfer pupil level information when a pupil moves from one school to another. Local authority maintained schools have a statutory obligation to provide a school with a CTF within 15 days of a pupil leaving their school. As academies do not come under this obligation, the department can enforce this requirement. However, the department would strongly recommend that academies participate in the CTF process. The pupil information provided via the CTF will assist academies in populating their MIS and support pupil welfare. It allows schools to keep a track of pupils moving schools and ensure that they do not go missing from education. The transfer of CTFs ensure important information such as a pupil's special educational needs are immediately available to the school. A new school can use the prior attainment history to inform their planning for the pupil's continuing education, thus allowing the school to be better able to meet the individual needs of each pupil with greater accuracy. CTFs are particularly important for children whose parents are serving with the armed forces. As these children tend to move schools more frequently, the transfer of up-to-date and relevant information via CTF supports their ongoing education across settings. Completing statutory returns like the school census, this will include key identifiers like the pupil UPN and ULN, which are needed to match together historical census collections to a drive of centrally derived funding allocations, for example the pupil premium. The importance of CTF should not assign a date of entry for a new pupil to a school. This should be assigned by the receiving school as the date that the pupil is first expected to attend that school. It is important that the start date is not a date during school holidays, planned closures or weekends, as it would not be possible for the school to have started on these dates. The pupil's date of entry is an important baseline for analysis and validation of school census returns. It will provide a clear indication of whether the pupil should be included on the return and whether key data items are missing, for example, pupils' attendance data. In addition, the department will use the information for data analysis on numerous areas, for example, pupil mobility and admissions. Therefore, it's important that the date of entry is recorded correctly. As this slide shows, there are specific requirements that schools should ensure are followed, especially if your school is a newly converted academy. The enrolment status submitted via the school census is vital to funding calculations and performance measures. Therefore, it's essential that schools ensure that the correct enrolment status has been provided. There are 5 types of enrolment status for pupils in scope of the school census. Pupils with a current enrolment status are pupils who are solely registered at one school. For duly registered pupils, the schools where the pupil was first registered, for example their ordinary school of attendance, will be the main registration, and the subsequent school will hold the subsidiary registration. It is expected pupils who attend a mainstream school and a pupil referral unit will be duly registered, as it is usual for pupils to attend a pupil referral unit as a temporary measure before returning to the mainstream school, which holds the main registration. Registrations F and O are for pupils who are solely on the register of a pupil referral unit, but spend the majority of their provision attending either an FE college or an independent alternative provision provider. There is a 6th enrolment status, which will be available within your MIS, and that is guest registration. This can be used by schools where a pupil is attending the school for a specific lesson or as a one-off visit. Guest registrations are defined with an enrollment status of G and will be excluded from your census return. The pupil's national curriculum group is the year group in which the pupil is taught for the majority of the time, regardless of their age. It is important that schools promote each pupil's year group to the year group which they'll be taught in during the current academic year. This will ensure that funding is targeted correctly. Currently, the language data collected for EAL pupils does not distinguish between pupils who lack a basic command of the English language versus those who are bilingual and have mastered English sufficiently to use the curriculum. To help us better understand this, proficiency in English will be collected for all those pupils in National Curriculum Year Group Reception and above, or aged 4 and above as at the 31st of August, where the National Curriculum does not apply, whose first language is not English or believed to be English. Where proficiency in English is required, it is expected that schools will use the position of their EAL pupils against a 5-point scale of reading, writing and spoken language proficiency outlined in the next 2 slides, and make a best fit judgment as to the proficiency stage that a pupil corresponds most closely to. The principle of making a best fit judgment is important, as it's not expected that the descriptors for each proficiency level should act as a simple checkbox where a pupil has to meet all the descriptions. The focus should be on the description which best describes the proficiency of each EAL child. Therefore, with regards to SEN children, the key would be the level of specific EAL support each child needs to engage with the curriculum classroom learning. This will be distinct from any other SEN support needed to account for the particular hearing or spoken difficulties, and therefore the proficiency in English assessment should focus on the level of support which is specifically needed to account for the child being EAL. For example, if a pupil who is unable to communicate verbally due to the special educational needs, the elements of the description relevant to spoken proficiency will not be relevant. This slide provides links which you may require before and during the collection. To find more information about how to submit your census data to us, including details about what data is collected for each termly census, and further information you will be required to know can be found on gov.uk. Please take some time to read these documents as they help fulfil your statutory requirements and successfully complete an accurate return. In addition to the online documents, we also provide a data collection forum. The purpose of the forum is to provide a facility to allow customers to exchange ideas and good practice relating to specific data collection and related EDD systems. You will require a username and password to access the forum. If you do not have a username and password, or if you have any questions about the facility, please complete a service request form. I do hope you found this presentation helpful. Thank you.